Welcome to the Gamescape, everybody. My name's Jeric, and today we are back in Chaos Gate Demon Hunters. This is my guide on the Apothecary class, which is the third in my series on your basic troops. The Apothecary is going to be mostly support. That's his primary role. He can do some other things as well, but generally that's what he's there for. He's there to heal your troops. He's there to give your troops resistances. He's there to give them buffs. And so we're going to take a look and see exactly how all that comes together. He can fight. He's not useless in a fight, but he's not as good at it maybe as some of the other classes are that are more combat inclined than this guy is. This guy's here to keep your guys alive and to help them in their fight. So let's take a look. Let's dive into his abilities here and let's see what we got. As always, when you're looking to kit out or build your skill tree, you want to take a look and see what his primary personal ability is. This particular one has Demon Bane, plus 10% crit chance for all melee and range attacks against demonic enemies. That's not bad. That's actually not too bad at all, because you run into a lot of demons, especially later on in the game, well, even in the mid game. So that's going to be an ability that serves him well. If I were building this guy out, I might focus just a little bit more on the combat side than on the buffing side potentially because of that. So that's completely up to you, though, how you want to build your guy out, and you can completely ignore that and just use that as icing on the cake if you wanted to do that as well. So let's talk about building this guy, kind of what his good points are, his bad points are. I'm going to start up here because this is one that I don't know. This is one of my least favorites, and so we're going to start there. This is Scourging. Target blast area over area 2 at range 15 to inflict bleed. Now, I talked about bleed a little bit at the same time I was talking about burn damage when I was doing my Purgatoire video. If you've seen that, you've already heard this, but if you haven't, I'm not a fan of bleed. And the reason why is because it's 2 damage per turn, which isn't very much in the grand scheme of things. I mean, early on, when the enemies are really weak and you're up against just, you know, masses of cultists that don't have very many hit points, maybe this is okay, right? But as you start getting into the tougher enemies, even starting with just the Plague Marines that show up pretty early, 2 points of damage is not that much. And then when you get late in the game, when your enemies have 30, 40, 50 hit points, 2 points of damage is pretty much nothing. And the other problem with it is that it happens after they get their next turn. So they get, you inflict the bleed damage on them. They get their entire next turn to act before that 2 points of damage is applied to them. So even if it's going to kill them, they're still going to get to shoot at you before that happens. So burn and bleed both suffer from that same problem. I'm not a fan of either, which makes me not a fan of this ability set here. But we're going to look at it anyway because I want to be thorough here. So this gives them 2 bleed, area 2, range 15. Good range, decent area, and that area can be upgraded here to +1, so it's area 3, which is a decent sized circle. Grim Surgeon, all bleed afflictions caused by the Apothecary last for +3 turns. Again, he's not going to live that long, hopefully. You know, hopefully your other knights are going to kill the guy before you have 4 or 5 turns worth of bleed applied to him. This last one here increases the area again, so I guess it's area 4, sorry. And at that range, and then for +3 turns, so you get 4 turns of bleed over a significant area of enemies. But again, is it helping you? I don't know. It's of limited use at best in my estimation. So again, your playstyle is your playstyle. You might do things differently than me, and maybe you found a use for this that I haven't. But as far as I'm concerned, burn and bleed damage isn't the best thing. The other abilities that he's got just around his tree here, we'll take a look at real quick too. This one also afflicts bleed with his Cybolt. So again, do you want this? I wouldn't take it if it were me, but you know, in this particular case, the soldier comes with it, so it's what it is. But I probably wouldn't bother with it. He's got will points on these 2 sides, extra willpower, and then he's got the ability to equip Terminator armor. I would absolutely pick this up. Terminator armor is superior in almost every single respect to power armor. The only difference, the only thing that power armor has over Terminator armor is the ability to climb and jump. And so otherwise, Terminator armor generally allows you to have more hit points, and it provides armor base even if you don't have your Aegis shield up. And later on, your Terminator suits can be upgraded to have up to like 4 or 5 points of armor in some cases, just on their own. So armor's good. Armor damage is damage that your Marine's not suffering to his health. The last thing about this particular skill tree up here, jump back to this for a second, is it doesn't open anything else up. You can't go sideways from here. So I don't know. I don't think this is worth the time in myself. The one on the bottom, on the other hand, is useful in some cases. So this is sort of your Apothecary's ability to do crowd control. And this is the Emperor's Judgment. Target a blast area over area 3 at range 15. Again, decent area, decent range, to afflict Hobbled. Hobbled will give them -2 move speed, which is going to be good in some situations, especially if you're running with a primarily range damage squad and you're up against a lot of melee troops. This can slow down those melee troops and keep them from getting to your guys before your own knights have a chance to mow them down. And so that can be nice. It's also upgradable to immobilized on the warp charge. And so that costs an extra will point, but it's not that expensive. It's 1 action point, 1 will point base, and then add another will point to do the warp charge to immobilize. That's pretty efficient, I think. And if you can get them stopped, then they're not going to be able to get to your guys. Now, this can be resisted, of course, as every other ability can be. But even if only some of them are coming at you, that's less damage your soldiers are going to take. And it also will help you prioritize your targets so that you can focus on the guys that are going to be able to get to you and not worry about the guys that are stuck for a turn. Down here, another extra 2 will points. Will points are always good. You're not going to ever go wrong with getting more will points. Upgrade the area to area +1. So now you're looking at a area of 4 that you're afflicted. So this gets to be, again, a good sized area at good range. And now you're actually doing something to the enemy, and you're immobilizing them, or you're just hobbling them and slowing them down. That's worthwhile in the case, especially like I said, if you're running in a ranged heavy damage squad. But now let's get into the meat and potatoes of the Apothecary class, and that is healing. Your Apothecary, when he's using an Arthesium as his primary melee weapon, has the ability to heal. And base, that's at range 1, heal 5, and it costs an action point and 2 will points. That can be upgraded through these abilities. This one gains +2 heal. This gains another +2 heal. So if you take both these, you're up to 9, and then you can warp charge to get another 5 on top of that, and an extra action point to the target. So now you're at 14 heal, and the target gets an extra action point. But this is expensive. This is costing you an action point and 4 will points to hand over that healing and the extra action point. Worth it in some cases, not all cases, but still, you're going to want to pick this warp charge up anyway, because it's going to get you up to here. This is Servo Skull upgrades, and you are almost definitely going to want this. Servo Skulls in this game are super nice, super powerful, super useful, and being able to carry more of them is nothing but good for you. This knight gets an extra war gear slot to equip Servo Skulls. And then these 2 abilities over here each increase the ammo of your Servo Skulls by 1. So now you get 3 uses base for each of your different Servo Skulls, as opposed to 1. And then this one right here is an interesting one that's going to come up later. This allows him to equip Apothecarian Skull, which allows him to use his Biomancies at range rather than at range 1. At any range other than range 1. So we'll talk about the Biomancies here in just a minute, but keep this one in the back of your mind, because this is a good one, and I'll come back to it when the time comes. But this is definitely probably going to be worth having in almost every build that you're going to do with your Apothecary, because like I said, Servo Skulls are very useful, and there are a lot of different types of Servo Skulls. They're not all just Medicae skulls. There are the Whaler Skulls, which basically act as decoys and force the enemy to attack the skull instead of your troops. There's the Seed Extraction Skull, which is super useful for getting seeds without having to generate critical hits, and so there's others as well that are good too. So that's something that you're probably going to want in your build. If you're going to focus on combat with your Apothecary, which you may, like I said, with this particular guy's Demon Bane ability, maybe that's the direction you might want to take him as you're building him out. You're coming down here. This one here is your melee discipline. This one gives you bleed on your 4 strikes. Again, not really worth it in my mind, but the rest of these are a little bit interesting. This one here is the knight's melee attacks automatically collects all bloom seeds from the target. Now, this is useful in that the servo extractor, the seed extractor skull, doesn't work on mechanical targets. And also, you can only use it once per turn. And later in the game, you're going to get into situations where there are multiple seed bearers in each spawn pod. And so you're going to need the ability to extract seeds more than one time per turn. Now, you can generate crits to do that as well, through things like Hammer Hand or Astral Strike on your ranged guys. But this guy being able to just walk up to somebody, stab him, and get the seed is not a bad ability for him to have. And then the rest of this is upgraded crit damage, +3 crit damage to your melee attacks. This just gets him his extra action points, potentially. So when he crits a target with a melee attack, it's 50% chance to gain 1 action point automatically. Again, action points are great. More action points are even better. If you have a chance to get more action points, you're probably going to want to take it. Now, if you're not specifically building this guy to be in combat and you're building him more for support, this might not be the direction you want to go. But it's not going to hurt to be able to have this ability to potentially get more crits. Now, he doesn't have anything that really helps him get those crits like some of the other classes do. So he doesn't have anything here that's increasing his chances to crit, but that's okay. It's still free action points potentially, and you always have some base chance to crit, although that base chance may be 0 against powerful enemies. But it's kind of one of those things. If you're coming down in here, you're going to want it. If you're not planning to do heavy combat, you probably don't want to come down into this part of the tree. All right, the other side here is the Biomancies. This is your primary support abilities for the rest of your squad. First one is Warp Speed Biomancy. This is to help out your melee troops. Target knight within range 1 to gain +2 crit damage for melee attacks, +1 move speed for 2 turns. Warp Speed lasts for 2 turns. So you're increasing speed and you're increasing crit damage. Now, notice it says, like I said, at range 1, within 1 range. This Apothecarian skull that you can pick up, you can equip. It doesn't have any ammo, so you can use it any number of times, although I think it's only once per turn. Or it might be once per turn per Biomancy, I'm not sure. But it allows you to apply these Biomancies to your soldiers anywhere on the map, no matter how far away they are. So having this be range 1 is a little bit of a pain, but being able to use this Apothecarian skull to extend that range is really nice. And that holds for all of these Biomancies as well. So the Warp Speed Biomancy, you're increasing move speed and crit damage. This one increases the crit damage by another +2. So now you're up to +4 crit damage. And this one up here increases the move speed by another 1. So now you're up to +3 move speed. So you've basically... you haven't doubled his movement speed, but you're more than 50% faster, so that's pretty good. This one here gives your knight extra 4 hit points permanently. That's okay. I don't know if you're going to want to spend the point on it or not, but maybe you are. And if you're going combat, you can still dip into this tree pretty easily and pick up this ability in that particular extra hit points if that's the way you want to go. But there are other ways to get hit points too. You can get them from war gear, and you can get them from armor sets and stuff like that. So this one isn't as important, but it's, if you're going to be in the thick of it, it might be worth having it. If you're going for a build or a team that is good at doing stuns and executions, this is the ability for you, the Iron Arm Biomancy. Target a knight within 1 range to gain +1 stun with melee attacks for 1 turn. Normally you do 1 stun. This will do 2 stun per turn, per attack per turn. Again, the Apothecarian Skull extends this range. This ability can be upgraded to a Surgical Adept. When this knight uses a Biomancy, he has a 50% chance to gain an action point automatically. This one you're probably going to want. If you're doing Biomancies at all, you're probably going to want to use this one because you're going to be handing them out semi-often, probably. And so again, the ability to gain the extra action point is going to be good for that. The other 2 upgrades here, upgrade the duration of Iron Arm Biomancy by turn. So now it's in effect for 2 turns. And this one gives another +1 stun. So now you're doing 3 stun per hit instead of 1. And 3 stun per hit is pretty good. You can get through most things stun meters in a reasonable amount of time with that. And so if you're looking for that, that's good. And then you can augment that with other things too. The Librarian has an ability that just stuns. There's also certain weapons gain +stun. Usually they're hammers. They gain plus stun when you warp charge them and stuff and so on. So if you're looking for an execution squad, this is the ability you're going to want. And the last one down here is the endurance Biomancy. Target at night within range 1 to gain 25% resistance for 2 turns and Purify. Now, as far as I'm concerned, Purify is the primary thing here, and the resistance is just kind of icing on the cake. Being able to purify your soldiers at range with your Apothecary and Skull without using a charge from a Servo Skull is really nice. A lot of times your knights get into situations where they're blinded or they're hobbled or they are plagued or whatever, and they're taking damage and they can't move, and this will just wipe that all out. Just one and done. It's 1 action point, 1 will point, they're free, good to go. So this is actually a really powerful ability to be able to purify. It's just kind of lost, I think, underneath what I think was intended to be the primary thing is the resistance. The upgrades on this, you get another 25% resistance, brings you up to 50%, and the boon lasts for an extra turn. And then you have Sympathetic Biomancy here. 15% chance when this knight uses a Biomancy, he has a 15% chance to gain the same boon automatically. This one, I don't know about this one. 15% is really low. That's, 1 in 8 roughly. You're going to get the extra boon yourself. And then is it going to help you? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Again, most of these are, I guess it depends on which one it is. Iron Arm Biomancy or the Warp Speed Biomancy, just extra speed is never bad, even if you're not using the crit damage. The extra resistance is okay too. So I don't know. It's not going to hurt you to get the extra boon. The question is, does 15% chance for it to happen make it worth spending the skill point on it? Now, if you've got a lot of extra focus type equipment, or if your soldier gains focus on his personal ability or something like that, this goes up to more than 15%, and then it might be worth considering it. If it's just 15%, you're not putting extra focus gear on your soldier or anything, I don't know if it's worth it or not. That's going to be something you're going to have to make a judgment call on. So that's basically it. Most of my apothecaries I normally kit out with full healing, the full package of the extra servo skulls, and then I bring them into the biomancies and have at least 2 of the 3 biomancies. So if you were to build that out, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's half of your skill points. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, something like that. Or you might grab Terminator armor. I would absolutely grab Terminator armor, so that's going to be one of your points too. Terminator armor is just too good to not take, I think, in my estimation. Just having armor at all is really nice, and it saves your soldier a lot of damage over time. So that's the abilities. That's kind of how I normally kit them out. But again, it depends on what you're doing, and it depends on the rest of your squad composition. Like I said, if you are not interested in healing, or if you're just depending on servo skulls for your healing, you might come down here and you might get this guy into melee more, and you might not give him a Narthecium. You might even give him an actual melee weapon that does more damage. Nartheciums generally don't do a lot of damage. That's kind of their drawback. Base on them is 3. We'll take a look at those in just a second. But he doesn't have to carry a Narthecium. Now you're giving up a lot of healing if you're not using it, and he can't use, I don't think he can do battlefield medicine without it. Yeah, Narthecium only. So you're giving up this whole thing if you don't take one. So I guess there's that to consider. But if you're really looking for him to be a melee crusher for some reason, then that might be where you want to go with him. So again, depends on your build out. It depends on your squad composition and your play style, how you're going to want to do that. But those are his abilities. Nartheciums, generally speaking, 3 damage and do 5 heal. No other real specialties. The ones that come from the Twitch stream gifts give plus 5% crit chance and a plus 5% or plus 1 rather crit damage. So pretty standard stuff there. Not much to it there. And unfortunately, like I said, they just do less damage. And this is a game where damage is kind of really what you want to be dishing out as quickly as you can, because it's really the best way to keep your troops safe is to just kill the other guys before they can hurt you. But there are other options that you could give him. He can't use the Crozius. That's the only thing he can't use. I wouldn't put a warding staff in his hand either. This weapon I mostly would just say give to a librarian and don't bother it with anybody else. But he could use any of the other melee weapons if you really wanted to, and you were okay with giving up all of his healing ability. But that's, again, judgment call for you. So ranged weapons, he's going to have a bolter on his arm. He doesn't have any opportunity to gain a heavy weapon. He's the only basic class that doesn't have that opportunity. So you're definitely going to be giving him a bolter on his arm. He's going to be using that bolter a lot. So you might want to give him one of your better bolters. Typically, I would give my Apothecary bolters that have armor break, for instance. That's a really good thing for them to have. Extended range bolters are really good for him to have as well. Armor piercing is okay, but again, I think I mentioned this in another video. I think that armor break is superior to armor piercing. Armor piercing is good for your one soldier who has it. It doesn't help the rest of the squad, because if your soldier can't kill the thing he's shooting on armor piercing, the rest of the squad's going to have to chew through that armor anyway. So it really doesn't help the rest of the squad. So that's my thoughts on that. But give him a good bolter, because he's going to be using it a lot, because he's not generally going to be the guy you want right in the thick of things for the most part. He's kind of your support guy. He's going to hang back. He's got his servo skulls. He's going to do his stuff from range. Typically, and if he needs to run in and heal somebody with his Narthecium because he's out of Medicae skulls or something, then he can do that, but he's typically not going to be on the front line of your squad, probably. Armor type, again, go with Terminator armor. Just do it. You're going to be happier with Terminator armor. He does lose some mobility in that he can't climb walls and he can't jump over things, but that's almost never a problem in this game. I saw one map in my entire playthrough where a Terminator suit could get stuck in a pit that it couldn't get out of, and that was it. And so and if you have a librarian with you, which you probably will by that point, or you may anyway, and they can just teleport them out of there, mobility is generally not going to be an issue for your soldiers at all, especially once you get the ability to teleport around. So definitely go with the Terminator armor. Extra will points are really what he wants, because it costs him will points to do all of his abilities, like healing especially. So more will points for him is good. Focus can be good for him, although other soldiers probably want it more than him, and so that's okay. Extra armor is not going to be bad. Anything that increases his ability to use servo skull ammo would be another good piece of armor for him. So those are kind of the things you want to look at. What's going to augment his abilities to do his job, and his job is servo skulls, healing, support, generally speaking, unless you're specifically building him out for combat, in which case you're going to probably outfit him slightly differently. War gear slots, he's going to get the servo skulls, and he's going to get the extra servo skull only slot if you skill him up into the war gear section of his tree. You can carry 2 different types of servo skulls, and so generally that's probably what you're going to end up doing. Usually Medicae skulls plus something else, so that he has extra healing power. But like I said, there's other really good skulls. He's got his Apothecarian skull, he's got the Extractor skull, there's the Whaler skull, there's others as well that are just super useful, and they don't cost action points, which is really nice. That's why they're so powerful. Cost no action points to use these skulls, and it's just free stuff, even if it's limited ammo. And he gets the chance to increase that ammo. You get him the +2 from his skill tree, and you find his suit of armor that gives +1. Now he's slinging around 4 skulls or 8 skulls per turn, that he, or total permission that he can use, and that's really excellent. So I would go focus mostly on Medicae skulls with him. He can use other things. He can equip the incense burner as well. If you need to get him some more willpower, this might be useful early on, although I think early on the Medicae skulls are still better, unless you really plan to do a lot of healing. I don't know. It's kind of 6 and 1/2 does the other, I guess, but the Medicae skull gives you the advantage of not only healing but purifying as well. So it is superior to his Narthecium because it does purify. And again, purify is really clutch ability in a really bad time. Being able to just hand out a purify is nice. As far as supporting this guy, he's more there to support your other soldiers, but if we kind of think about it, he can be benefited by a chaplain, because the chaplain has the ability to put up a litany that has a chance to give back a will point anytime your other knights use a warp charge or a Psybolt or anything like that. Anytime they basically charge up their own stuff, there's a percentage chance that they'll get that will point back for doing it. So that's kind of one of the things he can benefit from. Really, I don't know. I think that's about it as far as that goes. He's there to help others. He's not there to be helped by your knights, right? His job is to do the help. He is the support. And so that's kind of the same story with the chaplain, and that's why they kind of mesh together a little bit. That's really about it for the apothecary. I would say it's probably the simplest class, I think, but it's still pretty robust, and it's still capable in combat, even if it's not the most capable. He's got his bolter, and he does some damage with his Narthesium, and you can get upgraded Narthesiums that do 4 points of damage, maybe even 5. But that's not his primary role. His primary role there is to heal your troops, keep them running, and improve their ability to do their job through his biomancies and so on. So that's what you want him for. I almost always have an apothecary in my squad. Almost always. I very rarely don't take one on a mission, because a mission can go sideways and it can happen fast. And if you don't have good ability to heal and so on, then you could end up losing your soldiers, and you don't necessarily want that. So I guess that's about it. All I got to say for the apothecary. Again, solid class, good to have around, really good at what it does, and just not necessarily your frontline fighter. He's more your support guy, but you need support usually in your squad builds. And he has a little crowd control too, which can come in handy as well. So that's going to do it for this video. If you've enjoyed it, do me a favor, hit that like button. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button too. And we'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.